Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Dear students, I am Sayyid Rashid Jillani. I welcome all the students of class second year for their subject of English on the YouTube channel of Multan Public School and College, Multan. Dear students, today we are going to learn the essay, The Man Who Was a Hospital. This essay is taken from your English book 2, part 1, which is of modern English prose. Dear students, the writer of the essay is Jerome K. Jerome. Dear students, Jerome K. Jerome was a well-known English writer and humorist. He was born in 1859 and died in 1827 in England. He was best known for his comic travelogue, Three Men in a Boat. He wrote this travelogue in 1889. Jerome K. Jerome's peculiar quality as an author, which earns him a distinguished status, is description of the trivial incidents and make them one of the masterpieces in literature. Dear students, it means he usually writes on those topics which apparently have no significance and usually can easily be ignored, but it is his perfection in his writing skills that he can extract humor out of those events. Dear students, the essay The Man Who Was a Hospital is a humorous essay. Like all the comedies, the essay also begins with the trivial and silly act of the main character, who assumes himself a man carrying almost all the known diseases. It made him physically and mentally sick, and he starts behaving foolishly. Dear students, the readers enjoy the ludicrous moments with the character, which is obviously the writer himself, as the story proceeds. Dear students, he begins to ponder over the things of which he has no idea and knowledge. He stuffed his head with all the negative responses, which makes him a laughing stock. Dear students, some people have the hypersensitive attitude and can be influenced by anything of which they have no knowledge. Dear students, it is absolutely a very wrong way of understanding the things. We should be very positive and wise in our approach. Dear students, that's why they usually find themselves in extreme trouble. In the opinion of the writer, you should not stuff your head with the things you don't know. Your absurd thoughts and foolish behavior always drag you to a point where you either become sick-minded or a laughing stock. Dear students, we should adopt a very healthy lifestyle, and we should try to be happy under any circumstances, no matter how worse they may be. Dear students, the writer at the end comes to the conclusion that the life cannot be led through speculations and assumptions. Dear students, in the opening paragraphs of the essay, The Man Who Was a Hospital, Jerome K. Jerome told us how did he come to know that his liver was out of order. It means his liver was not working and there were certain problems which he felt. Dear students, he felt all the symptoms, he felt all the signs and indications which were written on the circular. Therefore, he was impelled to the conclusion, it means he was compelled or dragged to himself to get to the conclusion that he was suffering from that disease in its most dangerous, fatal, and poisonous form. The more he investigated, the more he began to feel the sensations which had sameness with the symptoms of the liver disorder circular. Dear students, in the third paragraph, the writer shared with his readers one of the most ridiculous incidents of his life when he once reached the British Museum to read up some slight ailments. It means he wanted to read about some minor diseases, the diseases which he thought he might have been a victim for many years. Dear students, he said, he picked up the book and began to study the book page-wise. By chance, he had a glance at the symptoms of hay fever and he felt those indications, that is the signs of the hay fever, in him. So he kept on turning the pages lazily and unconsciously. The writer said that he forgot which was the first disease he wanted to study about. He only realized that it might be an extremely harmful and horrible disease. He also realized that he had been suffering from the disease since long, when he read half of its forewarning signs. Dear students, sometimes unnecessary and wrong acquisition of knowledge of the things can become extremely disastrous. In this paragraph, you come to know about number of diseases such as typhoid fever, St. Vitus dance. In this disease, in St. Vitus dance, the nervous system of the patient begins to receive irregular commands and messages from the brain, and the movements of the patient's arms, legs, and other parts of body become out of control. Similarly, cholera and diphtheria in their horrible form may even consume the life of the patient. Dear students, but the writer felt ashamed for not having the housemaid's knee. Otherwise, he had all the diseases mentioned in the book. Dear students, that shows writer's unhealthy and sick way of thinking about the things of which he had no knowledge. Dear students, here the writer himself seems an absolute idiot, or like a person who, instead of being afraid of this discovery, he starts crying over the loss of housemaid's knee, the only disease which had not affected the writer yet. In his personal views that he had every known malady, he had every known disease in pharmacology, he says, after a while, however, less grasping feelings prevailed. I reflected that I had every other known malady in pharmacology, and I grew less selfish and determined to do without housemaid's knee. He felt a sort of slight, a sort of insult for not having the housemaid's knee, but he overcame these feelings very quickly, and he accepted the reality that he had to live without this disease. After some time, his greed for not having one out of all the known diseases became less, and he eventually made up his mind that he would never make a complaint for not having housemaid's knee. Dear students, he reached the conclusion that he had been living with gout. Dear students, gout is a disease. It's a very painful inflammation of joints. And the writer felt he had been living with the disease since long, with its very dangerous and virulent form. And the last disease which he mentioned, that was zymosis. It is an infectious disease and it transfers from one person to another. He thought that he would be an interesting case for medical point of view. Students would have no need to walk the hospital. They should study his case, and his case would be enough for them to take their diploma. Dear students, the discovery of a large number of diseases was quite surprising for the writer. He began to think how many days he would remain alive. He started to behave as if he were a madman. Dear students, he tried to feel his pulse. At first, he lost it, and after some times, he came to know that his pulse is tickling. He timed it, but timed it wrong. Then he tried to attempt to feel his heartbeat. He lost it. He patted all over the body to find it, but he couldn't. He tried to examine his tongue. He stretched it out as far as it could go and then shut one of his eyes, but he could only see the tip of the tongue. Dear students, the writer's actions and physical movements make his character very funny and humorous that the readers cannot help laughing. He was a healthy man when he entered in the museum, but he became a very poor, feeble, frail wreck when he came out of the museum. Dear students, in this paragraph, for the first time, the writer seems wise in his decision. He went to a doctor who was his old and very close-fisted friend. The doctor examined his pulse, then his tongue. He found no physical disorder in the function of the writer's body. Then, like a friend, he began to talk to him about the weather and other things. But it made the writer very surprised and annoyed too. He decided to call a spade to the doctor, and in a very strong tone, he said, "I will not take up your time, dear boy, with telling you what is the matter with me. I have not got housemaid's knee. Why I have not got housemaid's knee, I cannot tell you. But the fact remains that I have not got it. Everything else, however, I have got." And I told him how I came to discover it all. Dear students, the doctor, at the reaction of the writer, examined him again, this time in a very funny way, which the doctors usually don't. He clutched his wrist. His grip on the wrist was extremely strong, and the doctor hit the writer on his chest and then butted him with the side of his head, the writer thought it a cowardly act. The doctor wrote a prescription, folded it, and handed it to the writer, which he put in his pocket and went out. Dear students, the writer took the prescription to the chemist, but he handed it back to the writer. He said, I am a chemist. If I were a cooperative stores and a family hotel combined, I might be able to oblige you. It means he might be able to favor the writer. Being only a chemist hampers me. Being a chemist, there is an obstacle, there is an obstruction. He cannot help the writer. Dear students, it was the prescription for leading a happy, healthy, and prosperous life, and the writer himself began to read the prescription, and it was 1 pound beef steaks every 6 hours, 10-mile walk every morning, bed at 11 sharp every night, and don't stuff your head with things you don't understand. Dear students, the whole incident compels the readers that they should learn to live a carefree life. No need to be worried about the things which they cannot control and which they don't understand. Dear students, here are a few very important short questions for your examination point of view. Dear students, please take help from your video lectures. You have an ample time to improve your deficiencies regarding grammar, vocabulary, reading and writing. Dear students, I hope you must be on the positive note of the life and must be doing your best to avail the chance of scoring maximum marks in your Part 2 examination. Dear students, that's all from my side. I pray for all of you. By the grace of Allah Almighty, you all stay safe and healthy. Stay home and stay safe. Thank you very much.